All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome. If you'd be so kind, if you have a seat available, please take it now. We'll begin momentarily. Welcome to the Monday, December 11th, 2023 meeting of the Falls Church City Council. We're delighted you all are with us this evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order and ask that you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, will you call roll, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Conley?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Ms. Hardy?
Here.
Ms. Leon?
Here.
Ms. Schatz-Hiscott?
Here.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
And Mayor Tarter?
Here. Thank you. Before we get started, I just want to note some very sad news. The passing of Carol DeLong, who I think most of you in the audience are familiar with. That she was a giant here in Falls Church and was so involved for something like 60 years. And she was the first woman mayor of Falls Church, a 4-term mayor, served on the Planning Commission, the president of the CBC, a longtime member of VPAS, the League of Women Voters. She did it all here in the city, and she passed over the weekend. And I want to make note of that and ask that you please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We had the flags lowered, city flags lowered today in her honor. We had a ceremony earlier today that Mr. Duncan attended and myself as well. But very sad day for Falls Church, but I think it's a day to honor and reflect on her many, many years of service to the city here. So, Phil, I don't know if there's anything you might want to add.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, thank you to all who've extended your condolences to my wife's family, her sisters, Allison and Linda, and Chet, of course, who keeps going at 98. We'll have hopefully some information on arrangements, but I don't have anything to announce tonight, so stay tuned to the news press. There'll be some updates, I hope, as the week goes on. But thanks to everybody who called and texted and posted, and I'm sharing all that with the DeLong family. And thank you for this morning's ceremony. It was very moving.
All right, thank you. So let's move on now to adoption of the meeting agenda. Do we have a motion regarding the meeting agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the meeting agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. So now we're on to oaths of office for our new council members, or our new and existing council members. Madam Clerk? Let me start by just asking the members of the newly elected members if you'd like to say anything. You're most welcome. You don't need to. You have the floor if you'd like, and that includes Ms. Hardy as well. But there's no obligation to say anything. We'd also give you the opportunity to take photos with your family and your friends. So feel free after you've had your oath to come and take photos or whatever you might want to do. Spend a little time with your family up here, and we'd be happy to accommodate that as well. So again, anyone who'd like to speak, you're most welcome to. Otherwise, we can move on to Ms. Underhill.
I'll say a few quick words. I guess this will be my last time speaking at this podium for a while, so I'll take advantage of the opportunity. I want to thank everyone in this room tonight. I know almost all of you for your advice, your ideas, your support over the past year. Many of you may know Penny Gross. She is retiring from the Fairfax Board of Supervisors after more than 2 decades of service, and she sent me an email that with advice that she received from her mentor, who was the Oregon Senator Wayne Morse. He said, "I will exercise an independence of judgment based on the evidence of each issue. I will weigh the views of my constituents and party, but will cast my vote free of political pressure and unmoved by threats of loss of political support." Senator Morse lived by that pledge. He was narrowly defeated in 1968 after 24 years of service because he spoke out about the Vietnam War. I hope to use that as my ethical backbone as I serve, and I hope to represent all the vast pockets of life that make the city so wonderful, including citizens, non-citizens, owners, renters, refugees, entrepreneurs, workers, and school kids too. So with that, thank you, and I look forward to serving all of you in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if anyone else would like to say anything, you're most welcome. If not, we can, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you on the other one there. Ms. Flynn, congratulations to you and welcome.
I'm on this side. So I just want to thank all of you. I'm excited to join the council. I feel really privileged to do so. Thank you to all of you who are here tonight, who were supportive of my candidacy, who encouraged me to run. A lot of people who are steadfast supporters, but who are also people who took an interest in my candidacy along the way and became advisors and mentors and friends. And so I do appreciate that and look forward to kind of working with the current council and to everyone on boards and commissions and the community at large to represent, the community here, and to thank Mayor Tarter and Councilmember Duncan, who have been visionaries over the years and given so much of their own time to the city and looked both to move the city forward, but to also take kind of the practicalities of leadership and council membership into account. And so I hope, to bring that same spirit of consensus and compromise and working with one another to the council in support of the community and in betterment to the community, because people here really do engage in good faith. They take an interest in the city. They all want to see the city succeed, and I think we all share that vision as well. So thank you, and congratulations again to Justine and Letty. Congratulations again to Mayor Tarter and to Mr. Duncan, and thanks again to Tim, who I know we'll be working with on the Planning Commission. So thanks.
Ms. Hardy, is there anything you wanted to add? Okay, save it for later. All right. So let's go ahead and do the oaths of office. Madam Clerk, should we turn it over to you for that?
Yes, Councilmember Hardy, Councilmember-elect Flynn, Councilmember-elect Underhill. Can you please join me? And if you just want to join us up here, the electoral board is going to give you your election certificates before we do your oath of office. Yeah, if you all just want to go here. Yeah, we'll do it in the front so we can get some photos.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, Renee. Wonderful to work with you and look forward to more. Hi, Justine. Congratulations.
Yeah, there you go.
They're like on the little.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Do you want us to be together? And then you be.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Did you want to say anything? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Don't go away. Okay. You can leave this here if you want to, yeah. And so if you all want to stand, maybe here? Are we good here? Yeah, I'm just worried about my mic. You can all raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the City Council of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, according to the best of your ability?
I do.
Thank you, and you're sworn in. I just need you to sign these.
And if you all would like to bring your families up to take a quick photo, or your friends to come up.
Where your family's going, you want to
All right, so why don't we, anyone who'd like to get photos, why don't we get you and your family to come up and we'll take a few photos, and your parents are welcome to get in the picture if they'd like. We'll get someone to take the picture for you if you'd like. Sophie, would you like to do the honors?
Do you all want to stand up and be in the photo?
Do you want us in the picture, or you don't?
And Mr. Mayor, our legislative director and communications director have some special items to pass along to you and to council-elect.
Gimme.
Indeed. Mayor Tarter and council, it seems fitting night to be able to give this gift that's a commemoration of our 75th anniversary for the city. As you all know, we started celebrating that in August when we officially turned 75th. And having given a moment of silence for Carol DeLong, it seems very fitting that we're doing this today, because certainly she was a significant part of us reaching the 75th. And we've been honoring our past, our present, present, and our future. So the 75th Anniversary Committee would like to thank Mayor Tarter and Phil Duncan for your services that brought us to this point, and look forward to the current sitting council and our newly sworn-in council-elect for the next 75th as we move into that future. So we have for you the 75th coin. It has the logo on one side and the city seal on the other. And so Susan and I are honored to present those to you this evening.
Cindy,
you.
can you
That's-
show everybody in the audience that too?
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to the next 75th anniversary, the 150th anniversary. And I understand these are solid gold, is that right? Exactly. All right, these are beautiful, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both very much. Those are beautiful coins, and thank you for your efforts to celebrate our 75th anniversary. So what's next on the agenda,
I believe
Ms.
Ms.
Hardy?
Hardy.
Mayor, if I may move to the recognition part of the meeting. We'd love to do remarks and small gifts for the other half of our recognition.
Sure, thank you.
So before I kind of open up to other council members, I wanted to share a few comments. While we truly look forward to kind of a historic and new city council, it really is a bittersweet moment tonight. As big of an honor it is for me to have served for 8 years and be reelected, as I reflected on my time on city council and how much I've learned from Phil and Dave, it's an even bigger privilege to have served with the two of them and the remarkable accomplishments and progress that we've made together as a team, and the incredible course they've really set us on. Just like how my kids probably don't remember a time when I wasn't on the city council, I'm sure many of you in the community don't know or remember city council or Falls Church without the two of them around. And while it's the natural order of things, just like seasons change, batons get passed, babies grow up and graduate, it really won't feel the same without the two of you on the team. Dave, for your steady hand and all the dad jokes and the reliable comments about cementitious panels, Falls Church has really thrived and transformed under your leadership. And we've welcomed a few generations of councils under your watch. Through the highs and lows, we've weathered all the storms and come out ahead, especially in the snack department, with your steady hand at the wheel. Phil, for your eternal optimism for Falls Church and all that we can do and all that we've done together. Even though you really hate the moniker, we really truly become the little city that could. I'm so honored to have learned from you, from being a colleague and mentor to someone I consider a friend. You don't spend every Monday night in meetings and then likely several other nights together for 8 years and not feel like you've become family. We can all rattle off the many accomplishments from the news press headlines. Thank you, Nick, for those. The various boards Phil and Dave have served on, the businesses that have been opened, the number of meetings that they've been to. So much of what we love and can see around town has been touched and improved by the two of you. And to me, though, leadership is really not about that pomp and circumstance of the ribbon cuttings, the speeches, the big votes. It's not all the things that the public sees. It's all the behind-the-scenes work, all the extra hours of effort and time you spend thinking and working on behalf of the city that no one will ever give you credit for. But the rest of us know. Those of us up here know who puts in the hours, who pours their hearts into the job, the sacrifices that are made, and we're indebted to you for both of that. No words can adequately capture our appreciation and the range of emotions we all feel tonight. I do think I can speak on behalf of council and the greater community that we are so grateful for the dedication and time you've given to this community. I was meeting with a group of Boy Scouts yesterday, and I always start off illustrating how local government is far more impactful to a person's day-to-day life, far more than what happens in the public offices at the state and federal level. And you have made every person in Falls Church's life for the better. And like any job, this is what you make of it. You always get back what you put in. And in our case, we as a community, we've gotten so much more from you. Truly, thank you both.
Thank you very much. It's very kind.
I wanted to open up the opportunity for the rest of our colleagues up here. Debbie?
I'll leave all the seriousness to Letty because she articulated it so well, what many of us are feeling, and hopefully you both feel appreciated and loved for all that, like Letty has mentioned, the time, the service, and hours you've put into it. But I know the mayor. When I first met the mayor, our children were all in kindergarten together. The twins and my youngest were in Mrs. Hoff and Mrs. Wakely's class. They are now juniors in college. And pretty much every time I saw you after we met when they were in kindergarten, you asked about my family. You asked about my kids, what they're doing in the community. And I think that was really representative of how you appreciate kids in this community. You've always welcomed people to the dais, to encourage the mayor competitions, all the things that our students have done through the years. And I think that really represents how much you care for the community and like to see how it's grown literally and figuratively over the years. And I'm just appreciative of the opportunity to know you as the dad and friend before I had an opportunity to work with you as the mayor and the dad jokes, as Letty mentioned. I am sure that many of us will be happy to bring by any extra cookies from any event we attend. I'm sure there will be many, many more left once you are no longer at all of these events. We will keep you supplied. I promise to keep them on the doorstep because I don't know how you'll survive that 10 miles of walking without those calories. So thank you for all you've done for all the students, for all the kids in this community, and what you've done to keep it a family town while still working on building up the commercial corridors. So we really appreciate it. Thank you. Phil, I guess I've known a long time too, through the land of the sports ball, as the kids like to call it. It's just been a joy to be up here for the last 3 years. Well, 2 in person, 1 on Zoom. But I'm really going to miss the sprawl. Yeah. You all may not be able to see it from the audience, but Phil usually has stacks of papers. He's the only one who reads everything in paper form still. He usually has 4 or 5 different colors of pens, 3 or 4 highlighters, note cards he arranges all around the desk. Right now he's got tissues, hats, snacks, dinner, breakfast, lunch. Because sometimes he talks long enough. We need dinner, breakfast, and lunch by the time we finish. I'm really going to miss the sprawl and having an opportunity to work with you. And we'll keep working towards the $0, 0 tax rate that you so want. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you for the levity, Debbie. Anyone else? Mary Beth?
In addition to seconding everything that Ms. Hiscott and Ms. Hardy have to say, it has truly been a pleasure to serve with David Tarter and Philip Duncan on the City Council. There have been, so many nights that we've been here late, so many mornings that we're trying to figure things out, and one of you referenced the work behind the scenes, and there's so much work behind the scenes. So I'll start with Mayor Tarter, and one of the things that you do a lot of, and I don't know how much people appreciate it, is you give a lot of speeches. And I know that you work really hard on those speeches to the community, and you have represented Falls Church so well over the years, so graciously and kindly and genially, and you've made so many people feel welcome. So thank you for that. Being welcome is really important to me when you come to Falls Church, and you have been a great face of welcoming. It's appropriate that the two of you started at the same time on the same day, and now you're rolling off on the same day. And I think that in those 11 and a half years that they have been on City Council, we have done so much. This is a completely new and a renewed place in those 11 and a half years. So when I was trying to think of what to say about Phil Duncan, who I met when we were doing Kiwanis Little League together, the Hit-a-thon, if anyone knows baseball in the area. I Googled you in the Falls Church News Press, and April 26, 2012 came up, and it was your announcement of being a candidate. And as I read it, even though the city has changed a lot, you have not changed at all. And you're saying Falls Church faces big challenges on economic revitalization, school facilities, water and transportation infrastructure, fiscal management, and environmental stewardship, naming just a few. And I'm asking for a chance to help. And help you did for 11 and a half years. And at the very end of your article, you say, with our highly educated citizenry and our council manager form of government, collaboration is paramount. Listening, searching for points of agreement, finding common ground, that's my nature, that's my record. That's how I work for you on council. Thanks for your consideration. So that was your promise back in 2012, and that is what you have done here on the Falls Church City Council. So thank you for that.
And I have one, and then one of my favorite pictures from being on council was the year that the Nats did not win the World Series. And Phil and I were engaged, we were arguing, we were disagreeing about something, and I can't remember what it was. And we took a picture of ourselves on the dais with the Nats hat and saying, well, while we don't agree on everything, we are rooting for the Nats together. So I feel like that's a very important part of council too, is that even when you disagree, you have to work together. And we have done some wonderful things here, and I'm really proud to have served with both of you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, sounds like Mr. Dave.
Please go.
Oh, you sure did? It's been wonderful, not only working with, it's just wonderful to have this peer set. Phil, I have never met anybody who's been so adept with this camera, even without the extender, even with the extender. Every event you roll to, you're taking pictures. It's just amazing. I'm looking forward to the next act here and still running into you at all the chamber meetings. You definitely get around this city to every event. Dave, I think I'm going to still hunt you down for walks. If I can match your 10 miles a day, I think that would have been a huge, I don't even think I can do that. But I'm looking forward to the walk and chats. It was a new forum and mechanism that I was like, I have no idea why I haven't discovered this earlier. So, and I'm looking forward to that. So my time with you guys was too short, so I'm looking to be able to do more of it in the next stage that you guys are going to after this.
Thank you. Dave?
Sure, thanks a lot. First, a quick note about Carol DeLong's passing. In many ways, she was a mentor of mine, and in many ways created the modern city council, the structure, the approach to things, the focus on detail, and the leadership vision and the ability to see it through was something that I think is reflected tonight and in our efforts so many other nights. So, a strong message of appreciation to the work of Carol DeLong. So Phil Duncan is a remarkable person. We all have many images of Phil, but my strongest image of Phil was serving the city from a hospital bed. And his commitment to the city really has been excelled by no one that I know. For courage and for a longstanding desire to make the city better. Phil Duncan, as far as I know, cannot be exceeded by anyone. With regard to Dave Tarter, Dave really created the sense of civility and kindness. It's been said by others, but everyone was included. He was extraordinarily welcoming to everyone who appeared with us and before us. And he always strove for 7 votes, not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7. And hopefully, in the case of both Phil and Dave Tarter, their service to the city leaves us all a collective challenge for the future. Thank you.
Would staff like to say anything as well? Wyatt?
Well, thank you, Vice Mayor Hardy. Staff would like to say a few things, if we could, and I would like to start just by congratulating Aaron Flynn and Justine Underhill for your election, and it is great to see your families here tonight on this big occasion of being sworn in. On behalf of all city staff, we look forward to working with you to make democracy work here in the City of Falls Church. And this is an incredibly vibrant and a very dynamic place with the most engaged citizenry in the world in which to make that democracy work. And so we look forward to that adventure with you in the coming years. For Phil and for Dave, if I could say just a few words. First, for Phil Duncan. With Phil being a former reporter, with Phil, it's always, what's the story? And then does your story withstand scrutiny? That's the second part of what's the story. And that's always been a really important test for us to understand what the story is, come up with the facts and the rationale behind the story that would withstand scrutiny. And I think, Phil, you've always been a very sharp-eyed mentor in making sure that we have our story straight, and certainly always making sure that we have our minutes straight. One thing I'll note that Phil and I have in common, Phil met Leslie and I met Patty. Both of us met our life partners playing softball on the National Mall. And what I think that speaks to is a joy of public policy and having fun all at the same time. But that's something that we share. What Phil has always carried with him is a deep understanding of Falls Church, what makes this city tick, a former pillar of the community, as was mentioned earlier, but also someone with a very clear vision. The government should try to take advantage of opportunities when we can, and that the city should always look for those opportunities, look for investments in our business community that can produce investments that benefit the entire community. And Phil's been the greatest cheerleader for that. And of course, this past year, as was mentioned by Councilmember Snyder and others, your bravery and commitment has set a new standard that we will always remember. So thank you, Phil. Dave, we have spent so much time together. One of kind of our early bonding things was going to New York City to talk to the rating agencies. And when you're on a long train ride with somebody, you always bond with them. And when you take long walks across the city looking for the best pizza, you learn a lot of things about your traveling companion. I think Kieran and I both really valued that time with you, and we learned a lot. When you are the city's foremost walker and 10 miles a day, that when I heard you were trying to walk 10 miles a day, of course, that made me very nervous. I was picturing the long lists of problems that you were going to come back with. And one of the great things that I've always been incredibly grateful for is your graciousness, that I know that those things are going through your mind as you're walking through the city about all the things that we need to fix. But almost always you kept them to yourself. And that's pretty amazing. One thing I think about Dave is an understanding of process, which is, I think, related to that withholding of all that mountain of things that he knows that could be improved. I think that understanding of process was learned over time. I think Dave is by nature and by instinct a get-it-done kind of guy, but having seen the world and seen how government works, has built a tolerance for process. But still, there's always behind that a desire to just get things done. And we will continue to work very hard to respond to that. Dave lives by a code of conduct. Treat people with respect. And I've seen him demonstrate that in so many different forums. And he certainly has always shown that towards staff, and appreciate that so much. He's gone to so many lunches, so many award ceremonies, so many retirements, and has always shown up for city staff, and that makes a really big impression. Thank you for that. The last thing I will just note, the past several years have been featured with some really important negotiations for the city. And Dave, I think, is a very effective negotiator. A sort of an ear for compromise, when to compromise, when not to compromise, but always looking for a situation where both sides feel like they came out with a win. And when you're being pushed too far, sometimes it's just time to say no. But when there is an opportunity for a win-win, Dave will always go for it. In the last 10 years of proof of the power of that collaboration, where the tremendous things that we have been able to accomplish together. So Dave, it's been a great pleasure working with you. I'll never forget it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I don't think that was nearly enough roasting. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak about Phil and Dave? Former David Meyer, Mayor of City of Fairfax. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the mayor, Catherine Reed, Fairfax City Council, and all of the residents of the city of Fairfax, we want to extend our congratulations to Phil and to Dave Tarter for their effective service here in Falls Church. I was the mayor of the city of Fairfax for 6 years and on the council for 8.5, so I am living testimony that there is life after local government elected service. And I've been out now for 11 months in my work release program, and one of the benefits is that you get to wear blue jeans and a sweater to a council meeting instead of a tie. With respect to, and I've enjoyed working with Phil at our VML conferences and getting to know him well, and especially to your mayor, David Tarter. I will say that the mayor's job is somewhat unique in local government, and it's like a Venn diagram with 3 circles, and they're all equal, but they're not equal at the same time. And the first circle is representing the residents of the City of Falls Church, listening to their concerns and helping develop priorities. The second is leading the council, the agenda and the meetings, and bringing a consensus. And the third circle is representing the city regionally. And this is why I'm here, and I want to speak to that for a moment with respect to David Tarter's leadership. When I was the mayor of the city of Fairfax and David was leading the City of Falls Church, the region, as we all know, entered into one of the most serious challenges both the region and the country has faced in the pandemic. And at the most challenging and uncertain parts of that time, before vaccinations had been developed and we were all sequestered, we had meetings every Monday at noon, a Zoom call sponsored by the Northern Virginia Regional Commission that Dave was the chairman of, and he led those meetings very effectively. And we would meet with the governor about every 6 weeks. We would hear from our public health officials and look for opportunities to be effective in helping our citizens weather this big challenge. And that was my first introduction to Dave, and I learned a lot from him, and he was a great mentor and a great colleague to all of the leaders of all of their jurisdictions, large and small, here in Northern Virginia. And so I say to the citizens of the City of Falls Church, you are very fortunate to have the quality leadership that you have elected on your city councils over several years that I've been involved in local office. And you have a great staff, dedicated employees, and citizens who truly love this community. So the leadership that you have here in the city has reflected all of those qualities. And I extend my congratulations to Phil and to David Tarter for their years of service here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Anyone else in the audience? Okay. Well, if not, Dave and Phil, we have a small presentation for you all, so if we can move to the front. Might be more snacks.
And this is just a small token of our appreciation. We'd like to present you with plaques honoring your service. Oh, they're getting pictures. I also have something that I know, let's see. Dave Tarter will use quite a bit in his civilian life. And I believe the city manager has some gifts.
On behalf of the employees, for Dave, we have a painting by Bill Abel of City Hall. And we saw Bill Abel just last week. He came back from North Carolina for Audrey Luckman's remembrance. And so he came back and signed one especially for you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
And Phil Duncan, who his direction to me was, I want 5 ribbon cuttings a week, minimum. And so I know you went to a lot of ribbon cuttings. You got a lot of these with corporate sponsors on them. Here's a hard hat with the city logo on it, and signed by city
No, we need
employees.
photos with that. Come on.
I feel like that's a good look for you, Phil.
Yeah.
Come on.
I get to wear the silly hat.
Yeah, definitely.
That's your look, man. That's the new look.
That comes up the fact that I don't have any hair left. All right, there we go.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
One more, please, group. Everyone over here, please. Thank you.
Looking good. And one more small thing
Oh, wait, there's more.
from the city clerk's office. Mr. Duncan has helped us. He's found every typo I made my entire almost 10-year career in minutes, and I appreciate it. We call him Eagle Eye Duncan.
That's right.
And so we just wanted, well, this is, first of all, this is not a green shade, but it should help you in case we need some help with minutes.
Excellent.
And
Cut the glare down.
an eagle
Yeah.
with a magnifying glass. So I hope that.
There you go.
Here, I'll tell you the thing. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you, Sophie.
And then for our mayor,
Oh, my God.
I really am concerned that he is not going to make it without snacks. And so, well, first of all, I know he likes the city merch.
I
so
like, man. Woo,
we got
all right.
Yeah.
but also an emergency snack bag.
I like it. All right, keep
And some
talking.
extra healthy snacks.
Okay. Thank you.
We're going to miss you, but the budget is going to be.
All right.
Thank you.
Any more gifts? Anyone else in the audience?
Please,
That's it?
no more. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Dave.
You guys can see.
Phil, if you're ready.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hardy, and thanks to my colleagues for your very kind and thoughtful words. Thanks to everybody who has propped me up in a literal sense this year, but all the way through the 11 and a half years. It's terrific to have such strong support from staff who are responsive in every regard to our requests for information, and it really just makes a world of difference when you have an idea that comes into your head and you can call somebody on staff and they can actually get an answer for you in real time. It's a real luxury for somebody who was a journalist who did my own typing and answered my own phones all my life to be able to rely on a dedicated, professional, and nonpartisan staff. And I very much thank everything you've done for me, all the accommodations you made when I was in the hospital, trying to get through to the meetings, and for this awesome slideshow. Nobody's been probably looking at it like I have, but as a person who is the shutterbug of council, this is really an excellent photographic record of the last several years, so thank you for that. I'd be remiss unless I thank the key people who propped me up on the domestic front. That's my spouse, Leslie, and my kids, Tyler. Excuse me, Tyler and Meredith, who've been there for us through thick and thin, and really enabled me to keep going, particularly this year. with my responsibilities all the way through to the end. Determined to try to make it, and hey, finally hit the finish line. Sorry, there's no crying in baseball. I know my son taught me that. Politics I can't speak for. I happen to know that the mayor has an excellent statement that he's prepared. As a former journalist, I got a leaked copy of it, so I don't need to say all the things he's getting ready to say. I want a second, third, and fourth. It's as was noted here, a very thoughtful statement of summing up the 11 and a half years we've been together, and I can't possibly improve on it. I did want, as I was focusing my attention in the last couple of days on an obituary for Carol, I wanted to just read one little section of that, a couple of 3 paragraphs that resonated with me, and that I invite you to think about how history may not repeat itself, but it certainly echoes. During her tenure on City Council, Carol oversaw construction of the City Hall East Wing addition and the Kaiser Permanente Health Facility, the creation of Madison Park, and the building of the W&OD Trail Bridge across West Broad Street, along with streetscape improvements on West Broad between West and Haycock Road. She promoted the establishment of the Farmers Market, which has become a weekly institution in Falls Church. DeLong advocated for the Falls Church Housing Corporation to purchase 81 apartments at Winter Hill to preserve them as housing for lower-income elderly and people with disabilities. She fought for the establishment of the Aurora House, a residential counseling center on South Maple Avenue for adolescent girls. I bring those particular examples to your attention because I'm sure those of you who are following everything we do here on council, every single one of those things are in some form issues that we've dealt with here in the last 11 years, whether it's construction of a new medical office building, which is sort of the modern-day Kaiser facility, the business of the bicycle bridge. Well, now we have 2 bicycle bridges, all the work that has been done to improve the walkable and bikeable environment. We still have a lot to go, but all that started with the streetscape improvements on West Broad in the 1970s. Certainly by 1980, we had to have a bond referendum to finance better sidewalks because they were so controversial. The community was divided over whether we should really be having this walking thing going on. Doesn't everybody just drive around in cars all the time anyway? My point here is that, I guess I would congratulate first Justine and Aaron and Letty, obviously, and challenge you to be willing to do difficult things. Carol was willing to do difficult things. She'd built up a lot of capital in the community with her work on the PTAs and on the Planning Commission and her just work. I mean, nobody could outwork Carol when it came to attention to detail and keeping the staff on their toes. And she spent that capital, and she was mayor, on any number of worthwhile, worthy, and community-building activities. And I would encourage all of us to try to keep up that momentum. I think we've established a good record. We've done a lot of really fine things in the tradition of Falls Church and the tradition of the work that came before us. But there's still much more to do. And we have the people, we have the staff, we have the citizens in place to make that progress continue. And I hope we will do so. So thank you very much for hearing me out all these years. I appreciate it.
So I've put pen to paper for my thoughts, but before I get to them, I just want to mention that Phil and I were kind of the same election cycle, so we always ran together. The past 3 elections, Phil and I were always at the same events. We went to the same, forums or whatever you want to call it, so I spent a lot of time with Phil. And I would say this, Phil has been to like every civic meeting and every event the city has ever had. And he loves this city. He loves everything about it. And it is a labor of love for him. It's apparent to me. When we were running, we were both at Tollgate Townhouse subdivision, and I was on one side of the street, and Phil was on the other. And I went through the whole row of townhouses, there's probably like 16 of them, and Phil only made it through 2. And he was just talking, and I went over to him, I said, Phil, you got to keep moving, man. He's like, no, I want to know what everybody's thinking. I want to be a part of this. And he loved every second of it. But he didn't get through a whole lot of houses. But he really loves like getting to know this community, getting to know people, understanding them, understanding their needs, their wants, and how he can accommodate those, and how the city can better accommodate them as well. When I first ran, I did a commentary in the news press, and Phil called me up and he said, I didn't hear from anybody except Phil, he's a competitor, and he called me up and he said, it was really good, you really wrote a nice piece. And I said, thanks a lot. And I told someone that. He said, he's just trying to get in your head, he's trying to psych you out. And I said, no, I think he's just a nice guy. And it was true, he was just a nice guy, and he still is. But it's been a real pleasure to spend time with Phil. Economic Development Committee, he has chaired that for a number of years, and I think anything that promotes Falls Church business, Falls Church development is what Phil wants to do and what he has done these past years. So thank you, Phil. It's been a real pleasure serving with you. If I can, I might get on to my remarks now, which are written out, so bear with me and indulge me. I'm from around here. I was born and raised in Alexandria. But despite being local, the city of Falls Church was a bit of a mystery to me. I'd always assumed Falls Church High School was in Falls Church and wondered why at UVA kids from George Mason High School seemed so proud of their school wherever it was. It was decades before I understood there was a city of Falls Church distinct from the greater Falls Church area. However, once I officially discovered the city 20 plus years ago when we moved here, I was immediately struck by the small town charm and strong sense of community. The only thing that seemed lacking was a vibrant, walkable downtown that was commensurate with the quality of the schools. I'd spent years as a commercial real estate attorney and had seen the Arlington of my youth transform through thoughtful planning and development. And so shortly after arriving, I began my civic engagement as a member of the Economic Development Authority. There and subsequently, I've sought to use my professional experience to better Falls Church through smart redevelopment of our commercial corridors. Not redevelopment for the sake of redevelopment, or even for the tax revenue it generates, but to improve the quality of life for our residents. This process began with small area plans, which reimagined our commercial areas to be more walkable, vibrant, and economically successful. I now know what my memorial is going to look like, by the way. I can see the big on the screen. And Jim Snyder was instrumental in these efforts. I don't know if Jim's here or not, but he was just critical to our planning efforts. In my first campaign for council in 2012, I wrote, we must focus our efforts on revitalizing our commercial corridors to build a tax base that ensures the continued excellence of our schools and needed community services without burdening our residents with unduly high taxes. Here's the brochure. Somehow I even look younger now than I did in that picture, and I don't know how that is. More than a decade later, I'm proud to say we've done this. We've seen a steady stream of projects that have provided new vitality and energy to our city. These developments include the first new grocery store in the city in years, a new walkable Harris Teeter in the center of the city, Founders Row with acclaimed restaurants, and a new theater scheduled to open next summer, the first theater here in decades. A flagship Whole Foods that'll soon anchor our downtown crossroads and provide a permanent home for Creative Cauldron. And the West End development, the largest and most complex project in the city's history, which involved a ground lease, payment in lieu of taxes, VDOT, Virginia Tech, Fairfax County, Metro, and much, much more. It will create a new destination for the region with over 1.2 million square feet of placemaking office, hotel, senior living, assisted living, retail, apartments, and condominiums, just a stone's throw from the West Falls Church Metro. These projects and others have brought new walkable destinations and visitors to our city. They provided affordable housing, environmentally sustainable design, outdoor dining, more inviting sidewalks and streetscapes. And they put the city on a successful and sustainable financial footing, allowing us to lower our tax rate 12 cents over the past several years and laying the groundwork for future reductions. These efforts will continue to bear fruit for many years. We must remember, however, that all of these developments had strong commercial components: hotel, office, movie theater, grocery stores. Any developer will build residential units in Falls Church. That's a no-brainer. The trick is getting compelling commercial uses to ensure a balanced tax base, reduce service costs, continued economic vitality, and enliven downtown. With this tax revenue, the city has had its own building boom and implemented the most ambitious capital improvement plan in our city, which includes constructing a new $120 million state-of-the-art high school. When Phil and I took office, they said it couldn't be done, that a school that cost more than the city's entire budget was a bridge too far. But we proved them wrong. We have modernized and renovated all of our other schools, renovated and expanded our library, renovated City Hall, bought new parkland, upgraded our storm sewer system to prevent neighborhood flooding, added streetscape, new sidewalks, crosswalks, traffic calming, and streetscape, and created affordable ownership opportunities and added numerous ADU units to the city's inventory. And by the way, during the midst of all this, we received the first AAA bond rating in the city's history from all the rating agencies. As a small place, it's always been critical for Falls Church to get along with their neighbors, and I've sought to further these important relationships. As Mr. Meyer mentioned, during these past years, we've had the first joint meetings with Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax City, and Vienna's elected leadership. I'm proud to have served with our regional colleagues on the Council of Governments and the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. All in all, I've spent 17 years in civic involvement in Falls Church, on the Economic Development Authority, as interim city attorney, and finally city council and mayor. My children are all now away at school, and it's time for a new chapter in my life and for new adventures. I hope in some small way I've made Falls Church a better place. If not, I've wasted a whole heck of a lot of time. There are so many people who quietly did so much to make Falls Church a special, welcoming place, and I've had the pleasure of working with many of them. My family's been quite patient with me, my wife Karen, and my children Cole, Anna, and David. I thank you for your support and indulgence. I've spent many an anniversary, birthday, or other event at city council meetings or other city business. I know some of them are watching from Slovakia right now, so to them I would say go to bed. If you have not been put to sleep by my remarks, you will be when we get to the budget audit. It's been a pleasure working with my council colleagues. I know the city is in good hands with you. You need never speak of cementitious board again. I want to recognize staff for all their hard work as well. I know it can be a challenge working with 7 different council members who each have their own ideas and direction, but staff makes it look easy. Thank you to Wyatt Shields, Cindy Mester, Andy Young, Jenny Carroll, Karen Bawa, Sally Gillette, Carol McCroskey, Jim Snyder, Paul Stoddard, Becky Witzman, Mary Gavin, Sandy Ingram Salong, Tom Clinton, Jody Acosta, Matt Kay, Susan Finarelli, Gary Fuller, Dana Jones, and so many others who do the real work around here. Also, thank you to the clerk's office who keeps council in line and somehow manages to have a good time doing it. Sophie Kotcher, Veronica Prince, and of course Celeste Heath, thank you. Finally, thank you to the citizens of Falls Church for your trust and confidence. It's been truly gratifying to see this community up close as part of your local government. Thank you all for the experience and honor of a lifetime. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks for coming out. We appreciate this meeting. We've got plenty more to do. Let me find the agenda. We can get on with the rest of it. Anything? We've got that. Yeah, we're going to move on to that next. But again, thank you all for coming out. I know for Phil and I personally, it means a lot to see friends and colleagues come out this evening. So for those of you who have done that, we much appreciate it. So we've got another recognition to do as well right now. It's not for someone on council, but someone whose work is equally important. That's the recognition of Mary Marguerite Shovelin for her service on the electoral board. And so if you would be so kind as to come on down, we have a certificate of appreciation and We'd like to thank you for your service 2009 through 14 and 2021 through 2023, and Officer of Election of 2015 through 2020. The council is grateful to you for volunteering to serve the community to help Falls Church, make Falls Church a better place to live, work, and do business. By your dedicated efforts, you've contributed significantly to the future success of Falls Church. Ms. Shovelin, thank you, and come on forward and we'll give you our congratulations. Janet, do you have one? You want one? So why don't we turn around, we'll get a picture.
Oops, sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. So, Madam Clerk, are there any other oaths of office to administer tonight?
No, sir.
Okay. So let's move on to the receipt of public comment. Do you want to start with written comment?
I will. Thank you. Written comments received since the last regular city council meeting include a message on budget issues. Peter Markham of 213 North Maple Avenue asks about the impact of the end of federal COVID relief funds on the tax rate. We had several comments about the bike master plan. Patrick Connolly of 455 South Maple Avenue suggested addressing covered bike facilities in the bike master plan. Dan Crobeth of 238 Irving Street asked that Park Avenue be included in the plan. W&OD trail crossings be prioritized. Bicycle facilities be included in FY25 budget guidance. And he also advocated for allowing accessory dwelling units. Andrew Olison, 615 Lincoln Avenue, who is Bike Falls Church founder and the CACT vice chair, asked that Park Avenue be included in the plan. W&OD trail crossings be prioritized. Bicycle facilities be included in FY25 budget guidance. Speed camera deployment be increased, and that the sidewalk in front of Beto's be improved for access. Jacob Williams of 505 Roosevelt Boulevard asked that Park Avenue be included in the plan. W&OD trail crossings be prioritized, and bicycle facilities be included in FY25 budget guidance. We had some comments on the appeal of the Harb decision for 1011 Fowler Street. Daniel Clinton provided comments and asked the City Council to reverse the Harb's decision, citing an historical commission meeting on 11/16/23. Jackie Handley provided comment on and asked the City Council to reverse the Harb's decision. John Murphy of 308 Chestnut Street provided comment on and asked the City Council to reverse the Harb's decision and discussed a separate appeal to the BZA on the same matter. The Electoral Board, regarding the legislative program, the Electoral Board provided their 2023 legislative goals. And in other letters, Cassandra Rice wrote about a proposed project to provide housing and support for transgender community members in crisis. And that was it for the written comments.
All right, thank you very much. Let's move on now to public comment, receipt of public comment. That's for folks either in the audience right now or on the internet. And if you'd like to speak, please fill out a speaker slip like this gentleman has, the purple one right here, and hand it to the clerk. And your name will be called. Come up. You have 3 minutes. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes so we can get through the evening. State your name and address for the record, and we'll call the next speaker after that. So if you'd like to speak, again, fill out a purple speaker slip, hand it to the clerk over there, and she will call your name, and you can come to the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Madam Clerk, do you want to call the first speaker?
Yes, first we have Dwayne Myers, followed by Jeff Peterson.
All right, welcome.
Thank you. I'm here to make a plea for enhanced efforts for the security of people who live where I live and that is in Gresham Place. As we leave Gresham Place out onto Langston Boulevard, the light's not working, hasn't worked for probably over a year. It gives a green light to cars coming downhill, and they come very fast. Appreciate if some enhanced efforts can be made to fix that problem. Thank you.
Thank you. We're aware of the situation. I'm going to ask the city manager if he might have an update for you before you leave the room right now. Mr. Shields, anything to note?
Sir, I appreciate your being here tonight to speak to this issue. This is something that staff have been working on. The signal is controlled by Arlington County, and we're working with Arlington County to resolve it. And we do have a plan to do so. We'll follow up with the Homeowners Association in terms of the timeline to get that signal, basically kind of a redo of the entire signal so it will function as a full signal. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeff Peterson, followed by Ed Henderson and Frank Burdette.
Good evening, Council. I'm Jeff.
I don't think your mic's on.
Good evening, Council. Jeff Peterson, 205 Tyson Drive. I'm here representing the Falls Church Climate Action Network. We're a local organization providing public information about climate change and support for city projects to meet our climate goals. I really want to thank you on behalf of the Falls Church Climate Action Network for a great month for climate change here in Falls Church for the last month or so. Your adoption of the community and government energy plans, your adoption of a new goal for reducing climate emissions by 2050, and the inauguration of the solar panels on the high school. All were big wins for climate change and big progress. So that's all great to see. And really, I'm here to urge you to build on that progress, to step up to implement those important plans, particularly as you begin your funding deliberations for next year's budget. We've written to you with some suggestions on some of these points, and I'll just make them very briefly. We believe that now is the time to initiate the metrics that are discussed in the plans. Really critical to start now to track our progress so that we can know how we're doing. Heat pumps, rooftop solar, water heaters, electric vehicles, all these things, we need to know the progress the city's making. And to do that, we need metrics to be in place soon. Second, we really urge you to seriously consider the staffing increases that are suggested in the plans that are already adopted. I know how hard new staffing decisions are, but it's really critical that these plans be implemented. It's a critical need. I hope you'll think seriously about the staff to support these important plans. Third is that the plans call for new programs and projects and new investments. These will be really important, and we urge you to consider having a new line item in the budget that would track our progress toward implementing the climate and energy plans. We also think that an energy action budget crosswalk would be really useful, and we urge you to also consider every opportunity to apply for federal grants. And finally, we really think that the capital improvement program is also important to making these plans realistic. Things like the city's electric vehicles, school buses, and community center HVAC all need to be part of your CIP. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Council, we did receive a letter from Falls Church Climate Action Network, which was forwarded to you, and will be added to the public record. And next we have Ed Henderson and Frank Burdette, followed by Daniel Clinton.
Good evening. I'm Ed Henderson here on behalf of the Turner Hill Heritage Foundation.
And I am Frank Burdette. I'm here on behalf of the Social Justice Committee of Falls Church.
But first, I'd like to say thank you for your service to both Dave and Phil. We're going to miss you guys. Letty, looking forward to your continued service. And to Aaron and Justine, we're looking forward to seeing what you bring to the city. Now, the business that we're here today to talk about is the Martin Luther King Day celebration that Tenor Hill has done ever since 2017. And this year it's actually going to be held on Martin Luther King's actual birthday, January 15th. And the festivities will start at 10 o'clock at the Tenor Hill Civil Rights Monument, where people will begin to assemble and start sign making. There'll be warm refreshments. And around 11:15, we will start a program with some commemorations regarding the significance of Martin Luther King and the significance of having our feet do the talking. It's a very short march. It'll take place from the monument to the Falls Church, for which the town is named for. And at that time, the Social Justice Committee will have a program, and I'll let my colleague here tell you about that.
Thank you, Ed. So in addition to the march, each year on Dr. King's birthday, we're once again hosting a free public program at the Falls Church immediately following the march. This year, we're very excited to welcome to our program several distinguished and long-standing members of the community, including Pastor James Page from Galloway United Methodist, Reverend Burl Salmon from the Falls Church, Bishop Denise S. Tenor Wilson from the Rock Christian Center, and Michelle Leet, who's president of the Fairfax NAACP. Our goal this year is twofold: to gather in celebration of the life and legacy of Dr. King, and also to engage members of the community in small group conversations about continuing this great legacy. There will always be music and words of wisdom, and not insignificantly this year, we will be providing lunch for all attendees, thanks to the generous collaboration with our friends at the Falls Church. So please join us on Monday, January 15th at 10 a.m. at the Tenor Hill Arch. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll look forward to it. Thank you.
And I've given you all programs. I'll put the last few out here. Just wanted to make sure that we got this word out before the Christmas holiday, before everybody focuses on other things. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Ms. Hardy has a question.
Thank you, Ed, for the work you've put into this over the years. A question for city managers. I think over the years we've evolved the support for this march. Is city staff involved? And if not, can we be prepared to support this?
We certainly will be. And I know there has already been some staff discussions with the organizers, and we look forward to a great event.
All right, Madam Clerk, next speaker.
Yes, we have Daniel Clinton, followed by Amy Clinton.
All right, welcome.
Good evening. I'd like to speak at the agenda item for the barn.
Sure, you're welcome
If
to do
that's
so.
possible
Yeah, that's
at that
possible.
time.
Uh-huh.
You want to
Okay.
wait until, yeah, sure, we'll
please.
call you then. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And Ms. Clinton as
Yeah,
well.
same thing.
And
Same.
Karen Morrison, would you like to wait as well? Thank you.
All right, next speaker then.
We have Cassandra Rice.
All right, welcome, Ms. Rice.
Hi, everyone. I've been exposed to COVID recently, so please keep your space just for health reasons. I submitted public comment last week. You can find the email I submitted at well, you all have seen it, but if anyone else wants to find it, it's at the very bottom of the summary of public comment. This is what I have to say today. Hi, City Council, both outgoing and incoming. I'm not going by Cassandra these days. If you want my non-government name, you can ask me privately, as well as my preferred pronouns. This is a graphic depicting the 10 stages of genocide as researched by Dr. Gregory Stanton. Those stages are classification, symbolization, discrimination, dehumanization, organization, polarization, preparation, persecution, extermination, and finally, denial. Currently, America is in stage 9 of a transgender genocide, but these semantics aren't very important right now. Me, personally, I have witnessed Proud Boys attack a drag story hour this year, locally. My transgender ex-partner was punched outside a metro stop months ago. I'm close friends with a Falls Church City community member whose family is currently stuck in Florida. Their child has already experienced being committed because of their identity. How can Falls Church City help? Already, there are networks in place to help relocate people, much like there were during the Holocaust. However, this country's fractured social safety net makes it very difficult to relocate smoothly. Most community resources are locational, but all social services take time to successfully enroll somebody. During that time, refugees are at risk of being without shelter. I'm asking my community for help. I am already in contact with people doing the hard work of Safe Escape. I need this community to volunteer their guest bedrooms, mother-in-law suites, and accessory dwelling units. Even just a couple nights in a safe environment can make a world of difference to somebody who has had to flee their home. I don't just say this as someone who has done the research. I say this as somebody who had to run away from my home 2 months ago, and as someone who was kicked out of her home, growing up in Falls Church City repeatedly. This is real. This is happening right now, not just in Palestine, not just to the Uyghur people in China, but here in our own country to our own citizens. Now is the time to put action behind our words. Now is the time to help. If you even just have an air mattress to spare, that can seriously make a huge difference. It helps. Everyone has just a little piece they can bring to the table, and we need so many volunteers to make this launch this in a meaningful way. If you'd like to volunteer for the Emergency Shelter Initiative, you can chat with me in person, or I'll be around. You'll find me. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Madam Clerk?
That's it for our general public comment. We saved the public hearing comments.
All right. So let's move on to report of the city manager. And by the way, I know we've taken a fair amount of time on preliminary matters, but we will take a break around 9:30 just so everyone can use the restrooms and the like. So that's still about 45 minutes from now. Let's move on to the report of the city manager. Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Mayor Tarter, members of council. If I could invite Ms. Kieran Bawa, our Chief Financial Officer, forward. She's going to introduce Kristen Holland, who is our external auditor. And if I could use time during the city manager's report to have the audit presented to the city council, which we're required by law to do on an annual basis. Ms. Bawa.
Good evening, Mayor Tarter and members of the council. We have for you the city's annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. And that's conducted in accordance with the Code of Virginia. The city as a reporting entity comprises of the primary government and its component units, which include the Falls Church City Public Schools and the Economic Development Authority. These financial statements have been audited by Brown Edwards and Company LLP, a firm of licensed certified public accountants. Annual audit is a long-drawn process that starts in the month of June over here at the city and overlooking the fiscal operations and controls. A good amount of work and time is spent with the auditors and involves input from most all departments within the city. I want to acknowledge the immense amount of work managed by Ms. Melissa Ryman, the city's Deputy Director of Finance, and the finance team, as well as the fiscal staff from various departments citywide. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Kristen Holland, who's from Brown Edwards, who's joining us virtually. Kristen, over to you.
Very good. I want to start by thanking everyone in attendance for the opportunity to serve the city. As Kieran mentioned, my name is Kristen Holland. I'm a manager at Brown Edwards and Company. And Karen also sort of took the words out of my mouth. I want to compliment everyone at the city. We as auditors recognize that an audit is very intensive. We ask a lot of questions. We require a lot of information, not just from finance, but from every single department. And we know that you all have your own jobs to do in addition to this. So we do very much appreciate the cooperation during this very long process. I'll also say that I apologize for my voice. I'm also getting something like a lot of folks I think are. So if I cough, I'll try to mute real quick so I don't cough at you all. But I'm going to go over 3 deliverables. The most time I'd like to spend is the report, or the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or ACFR for short. I'm going to call out some PDF page numbers, and so if you're following along in the agenda packet, you can see what page that I'm looking at. So as far as the financial statement goes, the first thing I'll just point out is that it is in a draft form, and we do anticipate that it will be finalized by the end of the week, which the deadline is Friday, and that there will not be any significant changes to that report. But I just wanted to make sure I pointed out that it does say draft on it. The main parts of, I'll go over these pretty quickly, and if anyone has questions, I'll give you a moment to ask those as soon as I get done. So the main portions are the transmittal letter, which is on PDF page 10. And this is just an overall view of the city and an outline of the ACFR, essentially. It is substantially non-financial data, although there is some financial information in there, but it's a good overview to start with, to look over, that's prepared by Kieran and Wyatt. The audit opinion starts on PDF page 15. And this is a similar outline that we've had in the past. The very first paragraph tells you that we have issued or will issue a clean audit opinion. This essentially means that everything in the financial statements are accurate in all material respects. There are 2 things that I'd like to point out in the opinion. The third paragraph there on the first page starts with, "We did not audit the financial statements of West Falls Community Development Authority." This relates to the CDA that you all established in the prior year. And essentially that the CDA was audited by a separate auditing firm. We do not re-audit that information. We perform limited procedures to communicate with that auditor, and then essentially take that information and put it in the city's ACFR to present as a governmental fund. The next thing I'll point out is on the second page of the opinion at the top. We just want to draw your attention to specific notes as it relates to new auditing standards. There have been lots of new auditing standards the last several years, and this year, FY23, was the implementation of subscription-based information technology arrangements, which is a mouthful. We call it SPIDAs for short, and I'll get to a little bit more detail of that in just a second. The next section of the report I'd like to talk about is the MD&A, which is PDF page 19. MD&A standing for Management Discussion and Analysis. And as it says, it's management's discussion of the financial statements as a whole. So while this report is over 200 pages, this is an excellent place to go to a summary of everything. It's the only part of the entire report that is comparative. So it will show you information for not only fiscal year 23, but also fiscal year 22, and provide some insight on why there may have been some changes with some of that data. Now, I won't go into detail into any of the following pages. The actual basic financial statements start on page 37, and then the notes, the disclosure notes follow those. The disclosures are essentially policies and underlying information to help support the data that you see there in those exhibits. The one part of the report that I will point out, it starts on, let's see, PDF page 86. That's going back to the SPIDAs that I was mentioning. The new standards that I mentioned a moment ago have been extremely time consuming, not only from an auditor standpoint, but from your finance departments have spent a ton of time on these standards. This one is no exception. There was a tremendous amount of effort put into this up front and during the implementation throughout the audit. And so something to keep in mind is there's a lot of things under the surface happening just to provide 2 paragraphs of information. At the end of the day, this particular standard did not have a material impact on the city's financial report. However, we did put a disclosure in there to note that, yes, there was a new standard. And the short of it is it's basically information technology agreements that have to now be put in your financial records. There's some exceptions, but I'll leave it at that. Now, the CDA, I will just point out, that information starts on PDF page 168. It's 168 and 169. I won't go into any detailed information, but that's where that information is now to provide the inclusion of those activities in the financial records of the city. Now, to talk about the compliance reporting, that starts on PDF page 168. And, I'm sorry, not 168, 216. The first of these letters is what we call a yellow book report. And what that essentially means is, as part of your federal grants, there's also some other auxiliary requirements, and this letter communicates to you all any information that we might have discovered concerns related to internal controls, as well as state-related matters. And there were no problems in internal controls that we detected throughout the audit of federal grants or anything related to compliance matters. There was a state issue with VDOT funding. However, that was an ongoing issue that it's not anything that's new, but it is expressed in there in that particular letter on the second page. Now, the next letter starting on 218, that's actually an opinion, and it says uniform guidance at the top, but what this means is this is the opinion on how federal programs have been used, federal grants. The gist of it is that this is also a clean opinion. This is what you want. Everything looked good as far as that goes. There was, I will point out that with federal grants, we do not test them all. So we only test certain ones depending on various criteria. And the grants that we did test this year is often referred to as ARPA, but the technical name is the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. And then we also tested highway maintenance and construction. So that's everything I'm going to go over on the report. Is there any questions before I continue?
No, I don't think so. And thank you for your report so far. I would say if it's clean, we can probably go through this as expeditiously as you can feel comfortable doing.
Okay, the next letter is the internal control letter. I will not get into any details, but this goes over the different types of deficiencies that can happen in the audit outside of the federal awards audit. There's nothing of concern. All of the comments on here are the least severe of the comments, and you all are welcome to read over those and let us know if you have any questions.
All right, thank you.
And then the next letter is required communications with governance letter. That is essentially boilerplate, but it's customized to the city to express some required communication that us as auditors are supposed to communicate to you all as council. It goes over significant estimates and sensitive disclosures, any issues with management, which of course we had none, and if there was any adjustments or corrected or uncorrected adjustments. And you guys, again, are welcome to review that and let us know if you have any questions. The one thing I will say that is the draft form, it doesn't include the representation letter, which the final form will have that representation letter. And that is just essentially during the entire course of the audit, certain representations were made to us that we have to rely on as part of the audit process. And so all that is management taking formal responsibility for those representations. That's all I have.
All right, thank you so much. We know a lot of work goes into an audit like this, so we much appreciate your diligence. Any questions, Mr. Snyder?
Yeah, my question is to city staff. There were certain notes, certain comments made. Can you comment about our plan to address those so we don't see them in the future?
Let me first allow our Ms. Bawa to respond.
Are you talking about one of the letters?
Yes, I am. There was a
Okay.
comment, for example, about federal and also state grants and VDOT and that kind of thing. So I wonder if you don't need to comment in detail tonight, but what I do want is just an assurance that we have a plan to address any questions or comments that have been made in the course of this.
Right, so anything that we are finding out, staff is looking at it and making sure that we address that. It does not meet any of the materiality thresholds, and it has been discussed with the auditors as well.
Okay. So whether it meets the materiality threshold or not, there were some comments in here in some of the letters. So am I hearing you say that you've already discussed them with the auditor and that you will make any corrections going forward that need to be made? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Hardy?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I guess congrats to city and school staff for kind of a clean audit with no significant findings. I know that Phil's favorite part is always the beginning part, which talks about the management discussion and the progress. My favorite part is usually the operating indicators towards the end, which starts on page 211. For 2023, it's blank. So when the final version comes out, is that going to be populated? Because that really shows kind of how much that actually local government does. And I think it's a really good snapshot of how the community is continuing to grow and the number of news releases, the number of books being circulated at the library. I think that's always really telling about all the work that happens behind the scenes.
That's correct. We'll have those completed and sent to you electronically.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry. Scared you off? Since Ms. Hardy set me up, I will say that, yes, although it's not attached to the audit as such, the letter at the beginning from our staff is always of interest to me. The city targets an unassigned fund balance that's 17%, but not less than 12%, blah, blah, blah. As of June 30th, 2023, unassigned fund balance is 25.9% of general fund expenditures. So our target is 17%. Our actual is almost 26%. This probably is going to get discussed a little further in the budget guidance section based on what I heard at the Budget and Finance meeting on Friday. But we, I think, do need a policy for how to treat revenues in excess of plan in the unassigned fund balance, just as we have a plan or policy for how to treat shortages and how to recover from those. We have a need, I think, for a plan for how to deal with overages. So I'll look forward to that discussion. Thank you.
Can I make a quick point over there since you brought it up? So that number includes the 5.27 year-end balance from fiscal year 2023, and a good portion of that has been appropriated as part of the first budget amendment, and we're going to come and request a second budget amendment in January or February. So that number actually drops down if we separate out the 5.27, drops down to 19 million, which is about a little over 19%, but it's still over the 17% threshold. So
Thanks for that. It's helpful to have the actual dollars. So 19 million, a little over 19%. Does that include the money that we're getting from Virginia Tech transfer?
No, this is the general fund unassigned fund balance.
Yeah.
The Virginia Tech money goes in the capital reserve.
Okay, so that's the other reserve that is not reflected in this information. Okay.
I think what I'm going to bring up later on is what is our total available fund balance, so unassigned plus all the other reserves. I think according to the CAFR, sorry, there's a new word for it, whatever the new acronym.
ACFR.
Available fund balance, we're at $44 million, which is 41%. And so even though we are taking $5 million out from the surplus, I would love to talk about that more when we get to budget guidance and the budget process.
Sure.
Thanks for that follow-up.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you very much. Anything else, Mr. Shields?
That is all for the ACFR tonight. Well, actually, I will just note then my last thing on the city manager's report. We've been working, as we did last year, to have a report to the community, a year in review, and we're finishing that up this week, and we'll share that with City Council and with the Falls Church News Press. But it just is a chance to go through some of the things we've been able to accomplish, general government staff, working with community to move the city forward. So we'll have that report out in just a few days. Looking forward to that.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Holland, and thank you to your team.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks to everyone. So nothing else, any council requests before I move on? Any council requests? All right, I'm going to take that as a no. Let's move on to business on the agenda. Madam Clerk, will you call the first item?
Yes, we have the continued public hearing of an appeal to the City Council to reverse the Historic Architectural Review Board's denial of an application to raise a protected structure at 1011 Fowler Street.
All right, and I understand the city attorney is joining us remotely due to illness. I see her there in the corner of the screen. Ms. Gillette, would you like to give us some introductory remarks?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of council. At the last meeting on this appeal, the appellant asked that the city consider an issue that had not previously been raised, and that was that the barn is not subject to the historic district regulations at all. And the question of whether the barn is subject to those regulations is a matter of zoning administration. Only the zoning administrator is authorized by law to make that determination. Because the issue was raised at the last council meeting, our zoning administrator has evaluated the arguments of the appellant on that issue and has rendered a decision that the barn is, in fact, subject to the historic regulations. Her decision was issued to the applicant / appellant on Friday, I believe, but officially today, this morning, by certified mail. Her decision may be appealed by the applicant to the city's Board of Zoning Appeals. Having said all that, it is important for the City Council to understand that the issue of whether the barn is historical and subject to the HCC regulations is outside the scope of tonight's appeal hearing. Tonight, the council is limited to a review of the decision that was made by the Historic Architectural Review Board concerning the barn. That decision did not address at all the legitimacy of applying the historic regulations to the barn. That issue would not have been properly before the HARB. And in fact, the fact that the property owner submitted her barn raising application to the HARB was an acknowledgement that the barn was subject to those regulations. The HARB decision that is subject to appeal tonight and subject to council review was, in slightly oversimplified terms, limited to whether the historical value of the barn was significant enough to outweigh the burden to the property owner of preserving it. Therefore, I want to just remind council that tonight's review of the HARB decision is limited to the question of whether the HARB's findings relative to the 5 criteria set forth at Zoning Ordinance Section 48-794 were supported adequately by a preponderance of the evidence. The council can find that it was supported by a preponderance of the evidence or not, and that is the limits of your decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shields, is there any additional staff presentation tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. We would like to just give a brief staff report just on sort of an overview of the property and in terms of the case that was before the HARB. From there, I believe we have representatives from the HARB who may speak if they would like to speak. And we have the applicant, and they've already put in speaker slips, and so they will speak tonight as well. But if we could sort of go in that order and have the staff report just to sort of lay out, sort of orient us in terms of the property, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Cameron for that report.
Hello again, council members. I'll start with the staff report on line 3. Just as a reminder, this is a request for a continued public hearing from November 27th. That this is an appeal for Historic Architecture Review Board's decision or denial of an application to raise a protected structure, the structure being the barn on 1011 Fowler Street. And I'll skip to line 224 just to give the overview of, it's a good map to look at for orientation. As a reminder, the project proposal is for the applicant to raise the existing barn to facilitate the sale of land development of a new single-family home on Lot B. Above you have Lot 2B on top, the highlighted yellow barn, and the adjacent one-story garage. Below you have Lot 2A with the primary residence and the windmill and well pump. And then just give a brief history of the application history. On June 26th, the applicant came for HARB to seeking to raise the barn. HARB denied the raise, stating reasoning that they should put the lot back on the market for a potential buyer to then incur the cost needed to move the barn from Lot 2B to Lot 2A. July 13th, 2023, applicant sought to move the barn from Lot 2A to Lot 2, from Lot 2B to Lot 2A. HARB approved this. On October 26th, the applicant sought to raise the barn, stating primarily financial concerns as well as structural for the barn. HARB denied the application. On October 27th, an appeal was made to City Council to overturn HARB's decision. On line 174, we have additional materials found by staff as requested by City Council. And I'll jump to line 249. The following is the 5 criteria outlined in HCC code, which HARB used to analyze the proposed raising of the building structure. And these 5 criteria are what this decision was based on. And finally, to reiterate what the city attorney had mentioned before, the options for motion are to affirm, reverse, or modify HARB's decision. They also may remand it back to HARB. And City Council standard for review is determination whether or not review was contrary to HCC code or supported by evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else, Mr. Shields?
That is all that staff has. We'd be happy to answer any questions, but we could see if there is a HARB member that wishes to speak tonight. I don't know if there is one.
Okay, so I mean, I think for tonight we have had a hearing on this matter that is continued, I guess, on, but we don't need to repeat things that were said at the last hearing. But if anyone has anything they would like to say, particularly focusing on new materials or new information, you're welcome to. And I know we have 3 speakers. You're most welcome to speak. In just a few moments, I'll give you a chance to speak. But anyway, so would the applicant, your counsel, like to speak briefly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and staff. Am I under power? I'm going to ask, the owner would like to speak, so I will step back if that's okay with your honor, and then I'll come back. I thought Mr. Clinton also wants to speak. I'll just stand back. And let them address you, and then I'll address you, and then if there are any questions we need to attend to, I'll try to deal with those. You certainly may ask the owner questions And Mr. Clinton, I don't mean to preclude that by that comment. Is that satisfactory to you? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor? Can we clarify, the applicant is not under the time constraints, and then any commenters for the public hearing would be under 3 minutes, or? how would you
Yeah,
like-
so, look, let's try to keep everyone at 3 minutes. If you can't, so be it. I'm not talking about the applicant's counsel, but just various speakers of all persuasion. But as the applicant, yes, you'll have a wider ability to speak.
Thank you. I wasn't here the last meeting. I had COVID, so, but I just wanted to address some things that City Attorney brought up, and I want to be as respectful as possible. My mom passed in February of this year. I inherited the house. We're fixing up the historic house so I can move into it. And I want to be respectful, so please bear with me. In December a year ago, I had a member of HARB come do the drawings for the house. So from December to April, when we went before HARB, just to go there to get the drawings approved for the house. Nothing about the barn, nothing about anything, just as a protocol. And then at that time, it was mentioned the lot was under contract. And that's when they brought up the barn. And my frustration with this is that if I had a member of HARB with me for 4 months, almost on a daily basis, talking about needing the funds from the barn, specifically saying, I have to sell the lot, I need the funds to sell the lot to do the work on the house. And no mention was ever made that the barn was a protected structure. That's why it was such a shock to me when we get before HARB just for the plans for the house, and the barn is brought up. I mean, this was new news to me. And at that point, I just followed the protocol that I thought that I needed to follow. And I just think that's a big question that we all need to, like the city attorney said that when I made the application to HARB, I was admitting that I knew that the barn was protected. I didn't. HARB's own member didn't know it was protected. And so now, I'm in this mess. And I tried with the barn. When they said to move it, you look at the tapes, we were happy, we were going to do it. If I wanted just to get this done and get rid of the barn, to get the money, I would have been before council 6 months ago. I didn't go before council. We worked to try to move the barn. We paid professional people, which Ray Freeland, he knows what he's talking about. The other structural engineer came from a HARB member. He was very highly recommended. Daniel, he did a report on the barn. And I just feel like I've done everything I was supposed to do. And this whole process has just been extremely frustrating. And you heard Mr. Freeland say that the barn cannot be relocated. And another thing, and I know we have a time thing, so just give me 30 more seconds.
Coach, take your time.
I looked at the structures, the protected structures that were attached to the agenda from 1988. I went through every single one of those properties. There are 5 historic houses that have been raised that were on that list from 1988. The most recent was Founders Row. There's the Hilton Garden Inn. There's Northgate, whatever those condos are on Lee Highway. There are 5 historic protected houses that have been raised to give way for these high-rises. And I just don't understand why I'm having to go through all this for... I just don't understand this whole process. If I had been alerted that this barn was protected and I had to do X, Y, Z back in December a year ago, and it's been a very frustrating process. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we have Daniel Clinton, followed by Amy Clinton.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Tarter, Councilman Duncan, thank you for your service. Appreciate your time and everything you've done for the city. My name's Daniel Clinton. I represent the contracted buyer of Lot 2B at 1011 Fowler Street. During the past 8 long months, I started out impartial and trusting of the staff opinion and process as a whole. However, when I listened to the first hard meeting in denial of the raise, I heard that anything could be moved and that a developer could absorb the cost. I felt the need to speak up and consider that we're not a for-profit developer, but a 2 government worker family of 6. I did some research and found a recent similar situation when a large for-profit land developer applied to demolish a registered historic structure at 920 West Broad Street, Plaque 78, now Founders Row, and that demo was approved by the HARB and under permit 201-440-768 in 2019. The list of those goes on: 472 North Washington, 206 West Broad, 706 West Broad, 509 West Broad. It doesn't quite seem equitable that developers are allowed to demolish registered structures, but 2 families who wish to raise an unregistered structure have been charged with absorbing exorbitant costs, which the city's own ordinance specifically serves to protect. I know it's been said that after 8 months, now there's a different process to appeal that should have probably been first given an opportunity to Ms. Morrison. But the first assertion on the staff analysis that Lot 2B RPC 52109-006 was certified March 1985 is plainly inaccurate and misleading. Clearly on the official register provided to me by staff in the comprehensive plan and in the architectural survey in the library, it lists RPC number 52109-007 only. In fact, it specifically states that the exact square footage of only Lot 2A in the historical covenant. No historical document lists Lot 2B or parcel 5219006, even though it had been subdivided long before the ordinance. There's defined code and a process for designating non-residential structures, and that has not been followed. You cannot just lump structures or an address together and deem them protected. According to Code 48788, there's a process to designate structures built as residences, which was indisputably done in 1985 on Lot 2A, RPC 52109-007, plaque number 42. However, there's a separate process to expressly designate other structures defined in Code Section 48791, which includes petitions, a description of the parcel, which would be made subject to regulation, and finally, the City Council designating the structure if it meets specific criteria. Probably never done because according to the city's own historic architectural survey, the barn was, quote, rebuilt following a severe storm in 1977, at which time it was nearly demolished, unquote. This information was dismissed at the last HARB meeting. Regardless of opinion or intent, the fact is that the process to designate has never taken place for the barn as a non-residential structure under a separate parcel. There's case law in Cook versus the City of Falls Church that reversed the city's denial of a demolition because a structure cannot be deemed designated. It must have completed the certification process. Our own historical commission chair, Mr. Anzalone, stated in the historical commission meeting on 11/16, quote, under the Historic and Cultural Conservation District Ordinance, our overlay of historic properties in the City of Falls Church, structures like the barn and the windmill are not considered part of the historic structure, which is what is designated, although city staff said the barn was considered a historic structure for the purposes of this, unquote. Based on my research of the code, case law, thoughts of the former Board of Zoning Appeals member, John Murphy, chair of the Historical Commission, former mayor, structural engineers, I support raising of an unsafe, unregistered, and rebuilt non-residential structure and protecting taxpayer rights. Also, this way, Ms. Morrison can finish improving her certified historic residence and restore it to its public significance. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Sorry it took so long.
Thank you.
Next, we have Amy Clinton.
Yeah, and so I would just say also the owner, I give wide berth to taking longer than the 3 minutes, but people who are not the owner, even if you're related to the owner, I would just ask you, please keep your comments at 3 minutes for people who, even though you might be a party who might purchase the property later or otherwise.
I tried to time myself earlier and I didn't make it, so I'll try and read as fast.
If you can, just be as close to 3 minutes as you can. We'd appreciate it.
I will do my best. Thank
All right.
you. When does it start now? Okay, thanks. Good evening, Mayor, Charter, and City Council members. My name is Amy Clinton, and I'm an interested party in the matter of the decision whether to raise the barn located on Lot 2B at 1011 Fowler Street. I have hesitated to speak out publicly as I'm not currently a resident of the City of Falls Church, and for a long time felt it wasn't my place to do so, but I can no longer stay silent. For the past 3 years, my husband and I have dreamt, of finding a place to build our forever home in the city to house our now complete family of 6. We have hopes of our children attending the well-sought-after public school system, living closer to our extended family and places of work, and becoming contributing members of this community. However, we were met with massing housing shortages, bidding wars, and growing interest rates, making it nearly impossible to move into this area. 10 offers later, we thought our dreams had finally come true when we were under contract for the already subdivided Lot 2B on Fowler Street. It has been 8 months since the contract was let, and our dreams have been put on hold once more. I come before you today to shed light on not only my personal experience, but to arm the governing body of this city with the facts to make a well-informed decision. I've attended all 3 HARP meetings and last month's City Council meeting, where I've watched Ms. Morrison tirelessly attempt to work with the city to carry out the HARP's recommendations, followed by extensive research and due diligence to hire professional engineers to get a better grasp of the state of the structure she had inherited and truly understand its history. I reviewed the documentation she provided to the HARP and the City Council, and it's abundantly clear that the city staff has grossly misinterpreted the local ordinances and the governing law with respect to how to determine whether a building is classified as historic. The staff report is filled with opinions, intent, and interpretations, while the documentation Ms. Morrison and her team of professionals she has supporting her are based on facts, data points, and case law. In my profession in the federal government, I'm charged with making decisions that must be based in law and regulation. I'm well-versed in interpreting and operating in the gray areas where the law and regulations allow. In the environment I operate in, I cannot afford to bypass or ignore any regulations or deviations, otherwise I'm personally held accountable. In the case of the status of the barn located at Lot 2B at 1011 Fowler Street, we have found that there is no gray area protecting it under Ordinance 48-788. In fact, it is in direct conflict with the established local case law. It is clear to me that up until last week, the staff had not reviewed its own records that are publicly available to its citizens. Not only has due diligence not been performed, but under Ms. Morrison's presentation of her documentation to the HARB, it was not reviewed or considered. As the governing body of the city, I urge you to review the recording of the HARB meeting held on October 26, 2023. During that meeting, it was stated by the HARB that there was not enough time to review Mrs. Morrison's documents, and went on to say that the meeting needed to be quick because of a personal engagement that was occurring immediately following the HARB session, resulting in a meeting where nothing Ms. Morrison provided was reviewed or addressed, and no responses were provided to the public opinion. But instead of delaying the decision to allow for more time to process the information, Ms. Morrison was disregarded, her request was denied, and quite honestly disrespected. I would hope that if a board is chartered to make decisions based on an ordinance that serves to protect both the city's historic structure while not fiscally devastating its citizens, that this matter would be handled with more thought, consideration, and grace. This decision affects the livelihoods of 2 families who not only want to live in this community, but also restore its historical treasures. And as I stand before you today, that's why I stand before you today. It's been stated before, but I'll say it again. In accordance with Ordinance 48-788, in order for the structure to be classified as historic, it must follow the processes and procedures to be added to the local register. In this case, as evidenced by 2 separate deeds and tax ID numbers, Lot 2B is not included, only Lot 2A, and can be found in the city's register. Therefore, any structures on Lot 2B are not protected by any historic preservation ordinances. Further, there is case law that establishes the legal precedents. My husband already spoke to it, so I'll skip over that part. I'm hopeful that based on the information presented at the last City Council meeting and the additional time taken to review the facts of the situation, that the decision to deny the raising of the barn located on Lot 2B at 1011 Fowler Street be reversed. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm sorry for going over my time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on this matter? Madam Clerk, anyone else who wishes to speak to this matter? If you do, you need to fill out a speaker slip. You're most welcome to speak. Anyone's able to speak, but you need to fill out a speaker slip. So, Mr. O'Connor, why don't you go ahead and finish your remarks, and then if you want to fill out a speaker slip, I'll let you go ahead and speak as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope you all had a chance to look at my letter of December 11.
came in
which
this
I sent
afternoon. You're
today.
talking about the
I'm
one that
sorry
came
to
in.
parachute that letter in, but I was
Yeah.
on the road again. So that's all I can say. I did the best. Maybe I could have been a little faster, but I don't type very well. Speaking of Phil's editing, I needed him. But at any rate, I'm not going to repeat it, but I want to be very clear. The action of the owner in proceeding before the HARB, as she was asked to do when she went forward about the house, which is protected, and the barn was brought up because it was clear there was a contract on it. And the contract did not include the barn. No one who made an offer, and there were several offers on that property, is my understanding, no one, and I put this out in my memorandum to you previously, wanted the barn. It is not historic. It is 1980s material because it was destroyed by a storm. The action of this owner in going forward under the requirements of the HARB, as asked to do by the HARB, does not constitute a waiver of her rights as owner under the zoning laws of this city. And she is relying on the ordinance, and she is relying on the Cook versus BCA case, which I have pointed out, makes it very clear that structure to be under the domination of HARB, you cannot demolish it, must be protected. Now, the ordinance talks first about residences and structures used as residence, which this barn never was. A reasonable interpretation of these facts and consideration of the costs, I will mention again because the owner has made that point over and over. There's over $152,000 worth of expense that she had experts estimate for her if it was going to be moved. But then the deterioration of the structure is such that it's impossible really to do it. That cost, 152, does not include windows or painting. So to make it clear, the owner came to the city pursuant to law about renovations to the house, which is registered and protected. And the HARB, knowing the contract, brought up the barn. She tried, in good faith, to go forward with their requirements. Then she came in and pointed out the unreasonableness of trying to preserve it, or sell it, or move it. She needs to bear it down. Please give me a permit. That is not a waiver of her rights as an owner. And she still followed procedure under the ordinance to take an appeal, and the right of appeal is express. Is there any question that I can answer for anyone on the council?
Why don't we hear the rest of public comment, and then we'll go ahead and see if there are any
I
questions.
want to add two things. One, if I may, Carol DeLong, when I was elected, we had a split council, and she told me, as I was talking to her about lobbying the members individually so I could get 4 votes for something I wanted, she said, nothing got worse in Falls Church, Mr. O'Connor, by being commented on by the public. I took her advice. She was right. She was always right. The other thing I want to say is when I saw the mayor at the reception, I commented. I said, is that a tan? He said, not yet.
Thank you much. All right, so do we have any other speakers, Madam Clerk?
Members of the HARB have asked to speak.
Okay.
Would you?
All right, yes, that's fine. Look, the public can speak in this matter. We'll keep it, if you can, to 3 minutes per person. Can you do that? You got two people. All right, look, just go at it. Go ahead and speak.
I have a quicker statement, and then Charlie will take over from there.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Tiffany Morris Palazzo, Chair of HARB. I want to start by thanking City Attorney Gillette for providing clear guidance with respect to the legal standard for review this evening. I also want to thank the Mayor and the City Clerk for providing procedural guidance this evening. The Historic Architectural Review Board would like to reiterate its support for the preservation of the barn at 1011 Fowler Street based on the criteria established in the historic ordinance and reviewed during 4 public HARB meetings, culminating in the board's unanimous denial to raise the structure. I want to state personally that I understand that this is an emotional issue for the homeowners and the potential buyers, but we do feel that our review is limited to the HCC. I want to address very quickly the comments about the October HARB meeting. We do follow procedures at HARB that materials need to be submitted in advance of the meetings, and so we viewed that there were materials that were presented at the meeting that were not provided beforehand, and so those were not subject to our review during that meeting, but we would have been happy to review them otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moore?
Mayor Tarter and City Council, thank you for allowing the HARB members to speak. We actually had a little bit more lengthy conversation and would be happy to take questions. One of the things I wanted to say was to make the determination for whether or not this structure could be raised, we did go by the letter of the law of Section 48-794, which does have the 5 criteria for whether or not a structure is worthy of saving or not. Each of those 5 criteria we answered in the affirmative. And the affirmative answer is what's needed to preserve the building or to override a request to raise. If I can just indulge a little bit on history, because I think history is important. In 1984, the City of Falls Church established a historic ordinance to support the protection of all pre-1911 structures. This ordinance was expanded to include some post-1910 structures such as the State Theater. The city long ago determined that the protection and preservation of our early and pre-20th century architectural legacy was important. That fact is not being debated tonight as the HCC has established law. The HARB takes seriously its role in adjudicating the ordinance as it has done in this case. The HCC by design, our historic ordinance by design, sets a pretty high bar for making it difficult to raise historic structures. We have only around 100 in the city, and they are of great worthiness for us. Barns and other support structures were common in the town of Falls Church throughout the early history. It is safe to say that all residential structures had outbuildings, including barns and support that supported the only transportation of that era, which were horses. Of the many hundreds of barns and outbuildings that existed in 1910 when the ordinance is cut off, only approximately 8 remain. Many were lost during the rapid growth of the city, particularly during the pre- and post-World War II period. With the invention of the automobile and the dividing up of the larger residential properties, the utilitarian usefulness of these structures diminished. Some were lost to lack of care, fire, and development. In our review, the remaining barn structures, we found that some do suffer from degradation, but we're all reminded that the barns are not houses, but secondary structures that don't receive the same level of care as primary residences. Despite that, most of the remaining barns survive in relatively good shape, adding to the history of our city and making the connection to our pre-automobile past. What is terribly important in our view is this remaining history allows us to understand the accessory structure in its original context as a secondary structure to the primary home. We see that at Cherry Hill with the barns. We see that at the Dupuchern House at 508 Lincoln Avenue.